Hi, we're excited to welcome Pamela Chatterton Purdy. She is the author of Birds in My Closet. Hi, how are you, Pamela?
I'm good. Should I
Great.
should I be hitting got it on this? It's something in front of my face.
Oh, is there?
It says got it, do I hit this?
Yeah.
Oh, there.
Oh, God.
Okay, I've got it now. No, this is the book, Birds in My Closet.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start back from the beginning so that
Just
we can jump into that a little cleaner. Okay,
okay,
all right.
okay.
Hi, we're so excited to welcome author Pamela Chatterton Purdy. She's the author of the book Birds in My Closet. Hi, Pamela.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. You got the book there. That
I've
is
got the
so
book.
lovely. Let's go ahead and jump in. Tell us a little bit
I'm going to
about
jump in. I'm going to
about
read the
yourself
back of the book.
and a little bit about the book.
I'm going to read you the synopsis, which is on the back of the book. Birds in My Closet was inspired by an experience that the author's husband had with their adopted son of Black Vietnamese heritage. Hoang, age 5, has squirreled himself away in his closet, feeling less vulnerable having slept on a mat in Vietnam. His mom and dad supply him with a sleeping bag in hopes that there will be less nightmares. He talks to his dad and expresses his struggle with being different from the other kids at school, where he is called Blackie or Cotton Picker. He has taped pictures of birds all over the walls in his from Ranger Rick magazines. His dad crawls in beside him and asks, "What if all these birds looked alike?" Owan recognizes that it would be a pretty dull world. The boy falls asleep and dreams that he wakes up in a nest as a blooming full-feathered bird. He soon discovers that every bird in Birdship County looks just like him. And so the adventure of finally discovering the value of his uniqueness begins. This book I illustrated and wrote in 1980. That's a long time ago. And while COVID hit and we were sheltered in place, I was cleaning out a bureau drawer in my studio and I found it. It was unfinished. And I thought, oh my goodness, maybe it's time to finish this book. So I completed it. And that got published by Christian Faith Publishing. So I was thrilled with that. Now, I'm going to back up now and tell you how I got into this race issue. My husband and I have been married 60 years. It'll be 61 on June 7th. And we moved to Chicago. David had just graduated from Yale Divinity School with a degree in ministry. And I had just graduated from UNH with a degree in art. We moved to Chicago, and David was involved with inner city ministry. And I was looking for a job. We were with the Ecumenical Institute in Chicago. On the subway, I noticed a poster advertising an Ebony magazine celebrating the centennial of the Emancipation Proclamation. 1863, this was 1963. And believe it or not, I still have the copy. It's 60 years old. At any rate, I got my courage up, went in to interview for a job. I was shown into John Johnson's office. He looked at my art portfolio, then he looked at me and said, "Well, I guess I can hire as many whites as Look magazine hires blacks." And I was hired. I was one of two whites in a company of 150 employees. And that September, the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed, killing 4 little girls. November 22nd, 2 months after that, our wonderful President Kennedy was assassinated. The weeping and wailing was just palpable at Ebony. He was one of the first outspoken presidents pro-civil rights. That year, we produced a book, which I still have, The Kennedy Years and the Negro. Now, on one of the pages, there's a picture of me with the editor of this. Doris Saunders edited this book. You know, it's hard to see, but right here, I'm on the phone calling David. "Have you heard? The president has just been assassinated." And there's Doris Sanders. This whole 2 pages are pictures of people at Ebony who are in absolute throes of grief over this terrible, terrible time. That passed that past August 28th was the March on Washington. And it was called The Day They Marched. This is another book I worked on in 1963. So this was the month before I got my job at Ebony, but I was able to work on this book in the art department to produce The Day They Marched. David and I, after Chicago, moved to Amherst, where he became one of the chaplains at the university. And I went back to college and got my Master of Fine Arts in painting. We had 2 biological daughters, but we really wanted to be part of the beloved community that Dr. King so often spoke of. So we adopted our first African-American son in 1971, Ronald, age 3, adorable, precious Ronald. We brought him home. We were in Amherst then, Springfield. I'm sorry, we were in Springfield, Massachusetts. David was an associate pastor at the Trinity Methodist Church. And we ran into racism headlong. Having white privilege, you're unaware of the kind of racism that's out there until you have a Black child in the family. And we did not want him to be the only child of color in the family. We put in for another African-American son to balance things out. And all the application was done. I was teaching art full-time. We get this phone call, 1975, the fall of Saigon has just happened, and Vietnamese orphans are being flown into this country by the thousands. Would you consider a Vietnamese orphan? I said, oh God, we're gonna have to pray about this and call you back. All we could see was that little girl with burned napalm on her body running down the street. What had this child seen? The language, totally, we didn't speak Vietnamese. He certainly wouldn't speak English. So we called him back and said, as long as this child is half Black. Well, that was music to her ears. They were harder to place. People wanted the plain, straight Vietnamese child. So we picked up Hoang Quan Nguyen at the airport, and we had ourselves a wild child. We brought him home. He was very rambunctious, and he was so used to survival that he did not get along with the other 3 kids at first. He hid food in his closet under his bed for fear of not having any. And it was really tough on the other kids for a while. Eventually, there was another terrible incident where we're living in Winchester now, where David is the pastor of the Winchester Methodist Church. And he said, Mom, I'm going to go down at the corner and buy Dad a Father's Day card. I said, okay, I'm getting in the shower. So he goes down, and the next thing I know is Ronald and his white friend Jason are banging on the bathroom door. Hoang Stephen's 7 at this point, by the way, banging on the bathroom door. Hoang Stephen's been hit. He's been hit. I said, hit? What do you mean? I thought he'd been hit by a car. I quickly got out of the shower, threw my nightgown on, went downstairs, and here's Hoang Stephen with blood dripping off both elbows. No, Mom, not a car. A white kid picked me up and beat my head against a Coke machine and threw me on the floor, calling me a half-pint nigger. Well, I was just livid at that point. I called David. David came right home to take him to the hospital, get his head stitched up. And I set my sights. I said, now, how did that happen? Hoang Stephen said, well, I was walking downtown across the intersection at the railroad station, and some white kid tried to run me over. So I turned around and I said, you jerk. That's all that kid needed to hear. And he followed him into this convenience store, grabbed him by the throat and the rest. So David took him to the hospital, and I set my sights on that convenience store. I went into that convenience store. I threw my finger into the face of that clerk, and I said, I want to know what happened to my son about 20 minutes ago. He said, your son? Yes, he's adopted, and his head was hit on that Coke machine. Well, I took a double take. There was blood on a tear-off coupon on that Coke machine. I tore that off, slapped it down. I said, you're going to write the name of the kid that did this to my son. Okay, ma'am, I don't want to get in trouble. I said, you are in trouble. So he wrote the name down, and I marched into the police station, and we had him arrested. Went to court, the whole 9 yards. Our 4 children now are all in their 50s and doing well. Hoang Stephen ended up in the Coast Guard. The other 3 girls, Kristen, fluent in French, is a French teacher. Jessica's a poet and an artist. Ronald is doing very well with photography and mixed media. They all have degrees. So I'm back to the book. Um, I'm thrilled about the book because there are a lot of children. I was a school teacher for 30 years, and we had many different children, Black, white, Asian. Children need to know about what it's like to be left out or to be criticized in any way. And this book addresses those issues because at the end of the book, it's a story about how there's a wizard in Birdship County. The wizard has already granted two wishes: one to get rid of a cat stealing, a bird stealing cat, and the other one was because there was an argument with the wind and fire, and they had an argument and they burned down a lot of the woods, so those had to be replaced. But there's one wish left, and Long Stephen, who wakes up in Birdship County as a bird, thought he was pretty good looking, and then he realizes every bird in Birdship County looks just alike. So he comes up with some reasons why this is a problem, and he finds Kristen and Jessica and Ronald, his sisters and brother, and his father and his mother, but he has to ask about 3,000 birds before he can find, and all the birds are saying that's the problem around here. Nobody knows who is who. So he says, well, I'm going to come up with a solution. The girl birds can carry a flower, and the boy birds can carry a leaf. So we have Arthur Ashe carrying an ash leaf, Marble Maples. The girls can be Doris Daisy, and so forth. But then that doesn't seem to work because the flower blows away, or one bird spends so much time trying to find a clover that doesn't work so well. So then Huang Quan Nguyen, who is now Huang Stephen, decides that the wizard really loves fish. That's his thing. So they get together and they trap a fish, and Huang Stephen flies 2 hours north and 3 hours south to get to the tree where the wizard lives. And the wizard is humph, it's one last wish, and so forth and so on. He finally convinces the wizard that that one last wish would be that every bird in Birdship County become the color, the size, have a stripe, have a different color beak, all kinds of things, which you can see on the cover of the book. There's all these birds, and there's Huang, who is a wise owl, and there's the kingfisher, the wizard. Oh, you could be a kingfisher. You could be a king, and that's what sells this wizard on the idea of granting this wish. So the wish is granted, and the world has never been a more beautiful place. So that's the sum of it. And I think children at an early age need to be affirmed. Diversity is a big issue today, and I think this book addresses it. Okay?
That's amazing. It's an incredible story. This book has been a long time coming. I mean, 1980, and you've had such a ministry-filled life between you and your husband and your family. This seems like an extension of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I look forward to seeing what kind of impact this book makes. A very important topic, and I hope that you have all the success with it and that many children are impacted.
Thank you so much. It was delightful being with you.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.